Hello, welcome to the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. In today's video, we're going to be kind of going back to basics. It's going to be a 101 on sampling into your MPC. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the different processes you can go through whilst sampling into the MPC, and also go over some of the reasons why it's important to get a really good level and a good signal as you're going into your MPC right from the very start. Let's jump in. Okay, so as I said, this is kind of a back to basics thing. It's a 101. But what I'm hoping is even if you're at an advanced stage on your MPC journey, there might still be something here for you. So I'm hoping it's not just aimed at beginners. The way I think is, despite the fact I've been doing this for 40 plus years, I learn new things every single day. I have an absolutely open mind. You never know everything, and I make mistakes every day and I learn new things every day. So I'm hoping there's still going to be something here for you guys, even if you're at an advanced stage. So I'm going to make the assumption that you have already got something plugged into the back of your MPC, be it a turntable, a mixer, your computer, a cassette player, your phone, etc, etc. That's going into the inputs in the back of your MPC. Obviously, I'm using an MPC 1 here, so I only have a stereo input, left and right, 1 and 2. And obviously you have more inputs on the Live 2 and the MPC X, but we're just working with the MPC 1 today. Also, on the back of the Live 2 and the MPC 1, you have your record level, which is going to set the level that the source is coming into your MPC. On the X, it's on the actual top of the MPC, so it's easier to get to. It's a little bit fiddly if you've got your 1 or your Live 2 installed, kind of like I have, so I can't really reach around there. But also, obviously, you can affect the level coming from your mixer or your phone, your cassette player, whatever that you're using. So we'll jump right in. Starting on the main screen here, you can just, on the MPC 1 that is, you can just hit sampler and you're on the sampler screen. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the sampler screen very quickly, just explaining exactly what everything is on there. At the top here, you can choose your input. Now obviously, because it's an MPC 1, I just have 1 and 2, but I can also go to 1 or 2. Below, I can change to stereo or mono. Under here, we have some effects that you can add whilst you're recording into your MPC, so you can bake them in. I'm not going to go into that too much because that's a different video entirely. What I will say is with the new firmware, it's now been fixed so that you can use your QLinks, except it hasn't. Not on my MPC 1 anyway. I still can't change the parameters. I've gone through this on my other video. For some reason, for me, it doesn't work on my MPC 1. I haven't tried it on my Live 2 yet, but it doesn't work on my MPC 1. So that's a bit of a shame, but you can change the parameters using the data wheel. So whatever effects you want to use, you can add there as well. Down here, we have off and in. That's for monitoring. If you have that in, you can basically monitor and you're not going to get any latency. So it's giving you the signal before it goes into the MPC. So that's very useful. Here we have a way of setting the threshold. This doesn't set the level going into your MPC. It looks like it's the kind of thing that would, but actually what it does is it sets the threshold. I'll explain that in a second. Here's the sample length. When it starts recording, that will start running. You have a tuner here. This is for auto sampler, which we're not going to go into today. That's another video. Here you can set the length of the sample. I tend to have that set to 1 minute, but if you're recording a whole track in like 3 or 4 minutes, just make sure that that is set to longer than the actual sample that you want to sample. So if it's a 3-minute record, put it up to 3:10 just to be safe. Obviously, here's the arm button. Along the bottom here, you have sample, slice, pad tap, pad hold. I'll go into exactly what those mean in a second. And as I said, with the threshold here, that sets when the level's coming in, at what point the sampler will start recording. You can set that here, and I'll show you exactly how that works in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record a beat into the MPC, and I'll show you the different methods that you can use when recording in. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a good level going in. The reason for that is, and again, I'm not going to go into massive detail here, but there's a thing known as signal to noise ratio. And what that basically is everything has a noise floor. So let's say these are just numbers. I'm just going to throw these numbers out here. Let's just say at minus 60 dB, there was a little bit of hiss on your cassette player or your turntable, your mixer, etc. So that's at minus 60 dB. Let's say that you recorded in and you were just kind of hitting minus 20 dB. So your dynamic range between your noise floor and your -20, you've got 40 decibels there. Now, if it's only hitting at -20 dB, the chances are you're going to want to turn that up. So by turning that up, you're also going to be bringing up your noise floor. So you're going to be bringing up more hiss. So what you want to do is you want to increase the dynamic range. You basically want to have a higher level going into your MPC so that when you turn it up, you're not bringing the noise floor up. So you want to be as close to 0 dB, as close as possible to 0 dB without clipping. Now, the thing is, you can actually clip the MPC. You don't want to be smashing it, but if it's going into the red a little bit, it's not really a big deal. Honestly, it really isn't. I hit the red sometimes and it doesn't distort. As long as you're not absolutely smashing it, it's fine. But what I tend to do is just give myself a little bit of headroom. So I kind of aim for about 0.6 dB, or sorry, 6 dB below. Sorry, not 0.6. So I tend to aim, just give myself a little bit of headroom. So I might have to turn it up a little bit in the mix. But by giving yourself a little bit of headroom, but by also reducing the signal to noise ratio, you're going to be helping yourself in gain stage, and you're going to be helping yourself later on in mixing. And it's just a good rule to get. It's just a good method to get the best sound, the best levels as you're going in. And that's something that goes right back to tape. I started my life in the studio at 11 years old as a summer job as a tape op. And my job was to make sure that it was just about getting to 0 dB. It wouldn't matter if it flicked over a little bit into the red just a little bit. That was absolutely fine. But my job was to watch the levels. So, I've done that right from the very, very start. I've always made sure that right from the very, very off, I'm getting the best level possible. So that's really what you want to aim for. So I'm playing off my computer into my MPC, into the inputs in the back, just purely because it's easier for me to play off my computer than to reach over to my turntable, which is over there, and flick through. So I've got a beat set up in here. Now that's a pretty decent level. That's fine. I probably could go a little bit higher, but that's absolutely fine just there. By the way, if you want to get rid of this, just double tap the meter and it'll reset the meter. So what I'm going to do, so at the moment you could see that it was just up there, and because the threshold is all the way up the top, when I press ARM, it's not going to start recording. Let me show you. Okay, so you can see that hasn't started recording. But if I bring the threshold down a little bit, or to whatever level you want it to be, to where you want it to set because of the level that's coming in, you'll see now I've taken it down a little bit lower. Now, if I arm this now, as soon as I press play, it's going to start recording. So that's what the threshold basically does. We'll discard that just for now. What I tend to do personally, and this is a personal workflow thing, is I tend to just have that set all the way up, and I just press ARM and I press record when I want to start recording. That's just how I've always done it, but there's no right or wrong way. You can use the threshold method if you like, or you can just use the press record. So I could press record now. It's going to start recording. And there we go, and I could just stop it. So there we would have our sample. But again, we'll discard that because we don't need that for now. So that was in the normal sample mode. And you'll also notice in the normal sample mode, when I press ARM, there'll be a little slice button down here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you're going to be able to chop up as it's playing in, which is really, really useful. So you have that option in sample, but what you're having to do is use the touchscreen down here to chop it up. So it's a quick way to just chop your sample up as it goes in. So as you see, when I press record here, so now when I press stop and I go into, we'll keep that this time, when I go into, sample edit, you can see in the chop screen, it's already made some chops from when I was hitting on the touch screen, the slice button. The thing is I don't find that very tactile, and I don't find it particularly accurate, not as accurate as if I'm hitting my pads. So I personally don't tend to use that method. I will just get rid of that. Go back into the sampler screen. I don't tend to use that method myself personally. If I want to chop as it's going in, I tend to use the next one, which is slice. Now with slice, when I start recording, I can hit the pad and slice it, chop it, chop it, whatever you want to call it, as the sample is going in. So I'll show you, we can do that here. We'll start recording. So as you can see, stop that. Go into sample edit. Now you can see the chops are there. So that's a nice easy way that when you're sampling in, you can chop it up as you go. Now obviously I would go into these and they're not completely accurate. So I'd want to go in and change the start and end point, but it's just a quicker way of chopping up as you go. So we'll get rid of that. Don't need that anymore. Back into the sampler screen. Now, pad tap and pad hold. These are slightly different. You can chop the sample up or slice the sample up as you are recording it, but it does something slightly different. With the slice and sample, you will then go and chop it up when you go into sample edit. But with pad tap and pad hold, you're going to be using program edit and samples. Sorry, there we go, back to samples. That's where you're going to be using that to chop it up. So forget sample edit, program edit is what you're going to be using. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you have a drum program set up. So we'll set up a new drum program. There we go. Keep that selected on there. Go into sampler. Now with pad tap, what's going to happen is when I hit the pad, it's going to start recording. When I hit the pad again, same pad, it will stop recording, but it will continue to record the actual whole sample, or you can just do it in sequence the way that you're probably used to doing. But you can do it those two different ways. So to start with, what I'll do is I'll hit start and stop on the same pad, and I'll show you what it does. It still records the entire sample, which is really, really useful. So let's just take that back to the start, hit record. So as you can see there, I just picked out certain parts of the sample. Now, if I go into program edit now, so I picked out a bar there. On the second one, you see it's later on, it's recorded the entire sample. So the entire sample is still in there if you go into sample edit, but it's only actually put the chops in program edit samples and where I actually hit the pad and stop the pad. You could actually, as I said, go all the way through and do it in sequence, and it'll give you the chops in sequence. You can adjust the start and end point, but remember that's going to be in program edit and it's going to be automatically assigned to whichever drum group you happen to have in your main page. As far as I'm aware anyway, that's how it works. But do remember, if you do it with pad hold or the pad tap or pad hold, if you go into sample edit and chop, you're not going to have any chops there. So don't do that. Don't go in there, chop it all up, go into sample edit and then be, where are my chops? Your chops are going to be in program edit. So remember that pad hold and pad tap are in your program. Program edit, that's where you would do it. So that was with program hold. So let's just come out again, get rid of that. Go into sampler again, and this time we're going to do pad hold. Now pad hold does exactly the same thing. It records the entire sample. The reason why I like the pad tap and the pad hold personally is I like the fact that it records the entire sample, but you could just pick out the bits that you want. But then you could save the entire sample in your project folder. So you've still got it as backup if you want to go back to it. So again, it's just a quick way of chopping things up if you're doing things on the fly. Personally, myself, I tend to just sample and go into sample edit and chop it that way. That's just the way that I'm used to doing. But the pad tap and the pad hold, if you didn't know about them, they can actually be really, really useful to your workflow. So pad hold is a little bit different. Again, it applies to the drum group that you've got set up on your main page. Again, you would go into program edit to look at the chops, not sample edit. But this time, you're just going to be holding where you actually want it to be. So I'll show you again. Let's go back to the start again on here. So I've done various different styles there. First one you can see I just held the snare drum. There I made an absolute mess and didn't really get anything at all. There I held it for longer. So you get the idea. As long as you hold it, that's going to be what you're going to be actually chopping out of the main sample. But the main sample is still there. If I go into sample edit, the main sample's there. But remember that the chops won't be there. The chops are in program edit under samples. But that can be a really useful, quick way of just grabbing little bits out of a sample as you're sampling in, but you're still getting the entire sample if you want to go back in to sample edit and chop out certain parts that maybe you've missed. So there you have it. I guess a 101 on sampling into your MPC. Now, the reason why I've done this is if you watch my videos, you'll know that I tend to concentrate on quite advanced techniques. I mean, I do some kind of beginner stuff, but I do tend to focus on advanced mixing techniques, sampling, chopping techniques, etc. in the MPC. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is I do get asked on a daily basis, more than once a day. That would be a daily basis, right? When am I going to be doing a MPC course that people can pay for and download, and it'll be their own MPC course? Now, I've decided after a lot of thought that I'm not going to be doing that. The reason is that firstly, it takes a lot of time, and I have to spread myself quite thinly doing these videos, work for clients, mastering, making my own music. I'm spreading myself very, very thinly, and it's quite an undertaking to put together an entire course. You know, just ask people like Tube Digger, Marlo Diggs, Malo Beats. You know, they've put together courses, and I'm pretty certain it takes up a lot of time. The second thing is it goes out of date quite quickly. So I could spend 6 months putting together an entire course, and then Akai could release some more updates, more firmware. They could release another firmware. We could be on MPC 4, and suddenly I've got to redo a lot of the course. So I don't really want to do that. I just decided that I just don't really want to do that. What I'm going to be doing instead is over the coming months, possibly years, I'm going to be going through a 101 on some of the more basic stuff, but hopefully also even if you're in an advanced stage, like I said at the start of the video, there's still going to be some things in there that you're going to be able to pick up. The idea is that I'm going to be going through each one of these methods. There'll be chopping, sampling, mixing, mastering. I'm going to put them all together in the same way a course would be, but put them together on a playlist on YouTube. But it's going to be there for you guys, absolutely free, no payment. But it also gives me I can also update it as I go as well, or I can change it, or I can say this is an update to the chopping video I did, or an update to the sampling video that I did. And you know, I did really think about it a lot, because I do get asked a lot about doing the whole paid for course thing. And at the moment, I'm not saying it will never happen, but at the moment, I've decided that I want to go down this route and put it up onto YouTube for absolutely free. So thanks for watching. This is the Quakes Motel. My name's Conan. Till next time.